Okay, American federal government. Now we're on to the next chapter on campaigns and elections. Of course, this is especially important this year because this is 2024 presidential election year. First of all, in elections, we have primary and we have general elections. Primary election is where the political parties choose who their candidate is. And so we had those in March on what's called Super Tuesday. And in the presidential race, Democrats picked Joe Biden and Republicans picked Donald Trump. Now, in other races, like because Oklahoma has such a supermajority Republican Party, oftentimes the race for state senate or state representative or sheriff or county commissioner, that race is often decided in the primary election because there either will not be a Democratic opponent or the Democrat, in many cases, will lose. And so for many voters, if you don't get to vote in the primary, you probably aren't going to have much to say about picking the candidate. And that's a problem. One of the suggestions is to have more open primaries. And then the other suggestion is a ranked choice ballot, which I think is covered in this chapter later as well. We do have the Electoral College system is a majority system, and then there's straight ticket voting. First of all, the straight ticket voting is where you can go in and you just say, I'm voting for all Republicans or I'm voting for all Democrats. It makes a lot of the contest difficult. Again, in a state like Oklahoma, so for example, Ryan Walters is the state superintendent, and he is, well, he wasn't qualified. He's never been a superintendent. Second, he's very combative and controversial, and there's a lot of problems. He was a really, really weak candidate, and there was a challenger for his seat that was a much better candidate, and she lost. And that was really a sign, because I think a lot of people were thinking that maybe the Democrat could win, and it told us that really at the statewide level, that a Democrat's not going to win in Oklahoma. And a lot of the reasons is because people just do straight party voting. They'll just go in and they'll pick, I want Republican for all of them. I'm not going to vote for Democrat for any of them. And the same holds true in vice versa in other states that are blue states. One of the problems with legislative elections, especially at the congressional level, is gerrymandering. So gerrymandering is, Oklahoma has 5 representatives. California, I think, has like 52, I think. And that is because you get 1 representative for every 750,000 people, roughly. They need to be proportional. In other words, you cannot have, Oklahoma has 4 million people. You cannot have 1 representative for 4 million and 4 representatives for 1 million. It needs to be roughly 750,000. But how you draw those lines is up to the state legislature. And so what they usually do is they draw those lines in their favor so that they can better win elections. All right, so here's the best example of that. In 2018, a Democrat, and this hasn't happened in a long time, since back when Oklahoma used to be a Democratic state, a Democrat won House of Representatives seats. I think it was Congressional District 4. And it's like, how do they do that? Well, she campaigned and worked her butt off. I think it was Laura Hearn was her name. And she worked her tail end off. And the other one kind of fell asleep because he thought he had it won. But also her district included Norman, which is where the University of Oklahoma is. And then it stretched to East Oklahoma City, which has a largely African-American population. And so that tended to give her a little bit more of a boost and a better chance, and so she won. Well, guess what they did when they redrew that district? They separated those two. And that way, a Democrat can't win that seat anymore, because Eastern Oklahoma City is in another district, and Norman, a university liberal town, is in another district. And that's how gerrymandering works, so that you could do it more favorably. But oftentimes it was done upon race as well, which is illegal and problematic. We just went through on presidential elections, the primary process. It was not competitive this year. Of course, Biden, typically the incumbent is not going to have an opposition, and Biden didn't. Sometimes they do, and that could spell real trouble for the incumbent. In past times when there's been a strong primary contender against an incumbent president, it's a sign of trouble. But Biden didn't have really any significant opposition, and Trump walked rather easily through his nomination and won that. And then we're going to see in August, you're going to see the party conventions, and that's where they officially nominate their candidate. And that used to be, those conventions is where they would pick it, and the party leaders would pick the candidate. But now the primaries pick it, and that's really just one big free campaign ad that lasts for a week. And so it's become, the conventions become more about campaigning, but also putting forth what their ideas are. And that was like in your last assignment, like what could they say at the conventions? What could Democrats say at the convention that could be more appealing to people and win more votes, especially moderate independent voters? And then what could Republicans say that could be appealing? That's what they're going to target at those conventions. We also have direct democracy elections. Those are referendums. The best example of that in Oklahoma, of course, is medicinal marijuana. They could never get that passed. The legislature would never pass that. And so if you get enough signatures, then you can put something on the ballot. Anybody can get something put on the ballot if they got enough signatures. It takes like 150,000 signatures, so it takes a lot. But they had the resources. They got that put on the ballot, and marijuana, medicinal marijuana, passed by the vote of the people. And now there's an attempt to get recreational marijuana. There's also been big attempts, and it's been successful in many states, Ohio, Kansas, I want to say Kentucky, even red states, to protect abortion rights and put that into law. Because since Roe v. Wade, of course, a lot of states have banned abortions, including Oklahoma, as we've talked about. So there's a move in Oklahoma as well. Let's put that to a vote of the people. And if the people vote that abortion should be legal in Oklahoma, then it's legal. And it's been successful. What you've seen then is states like Oklahoma have tried to make the referendum process more difficult. They put, okay, instead of 150,000 signatures, you've got to have 250,000 signatures, and you only have 1 month to do it. And then you've got to pay a whole bunch of money to get that on there. All sorts of things to try to make it more difficult, which in many ways is anti-democratic, because what they're doing is they know if these issues go to a vote of the people, even in Oklahoma, polling shows that it would be close. But I think it could pass in Oklahoma, but we'll see if that's on the ballot. I don't think it's not going to be on the ballot this election, as far as I know, but they're trying to get that on the ballot. So that's an example of how referendums work. There's also the talk about the influence of media and the influence of money in campaigns and elections. And obviously that has an outsized influence. There's been attempts to try to reduce the influence of money, but the last one, McCain-Feingold campaign finance bill, that was overturned by the Supreme Court. And so it's been really difficult to stop the influence. And a big thing about elections, of course, is the media, because especially in the social media age, people have difficulty deciphering a lot of that information. So that's the chapter on campaigns and elections. And as usual, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.